Hi, and welcome to our Sunday Talks by Co-Church. I'm here in the offices of Durban University of Technology, or DUT, and I'm here because we're taking our Sunday Talks on the road because we want to put a spotlight on certain incredible initiatives that are taking place in our region. I'm here because I'm going to have a conversation with Wandile Mtiani.
One day I got a random email saying there was a social venture competition, and I was like, yo, I've been thinking about this thing called Ubuntu, which later became Ubuntu Design Group. I literally wrote a business plan from Friday to Monday. It was due on Monday. To my surprise, Ubuntu won. It started winning awards, being featured in articles, and somehow, even before we had any designs, became one of the top 6 finalists at the Eco Place by Design at South by Southwest.
Yeah, just like any other kid, we loved playing house. Well, except our houses were too small, so we had to find a way of developing and building our own houses. So this meant that all the kids would come together, bring all their scrap materials and put it together to build a shack right next to our family's shack. And this process taught me how to be resourceful with scarce resources and also how to be creative.
Then I got invited to New York City by World Merit.
What up?
What's good, man?
How you guys doing? So,
What are you saying, dude?
I'm good, man.
What's good, man? What's good?
This is my crew.
World Merit brought together young leaders from around the world to compete for the opportunity to have their ideas presented to the United Nations headquarters.
Hey, Wonderlight.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
But you've got so much charisma, and you're so good. You're so good looking. Everybody wants to work with you anyway, so you're fine. You're doing well.
After much debating within the group, I was assigned to SDG 11, which dealt with sustainable cities and communities. Ubuntu Design Group won, and it was chosen to be presented at the United Nations by our group.
So we don't think about the heat outside. Oh God. Oh jeez.
This is less than you're gonna have tomorrow.
Yeah, this is true.
So you're still working on them right now.
All right, I'm gonna start again. Ubuntu Design Group changes the ways we look at informal settlements. Co-designing communities, retaining community culture, harnessing creative spirit, and putting the people as the lead architect of their community and homes. I am because we are. It's the Zulu translation for Ubuntu, and it's this philosophy and way of thinking is what drives us to know that together we can make the world a better place.
So we're out here at the United Nations to pitch the program that we've been working on. We're pitching the Ubuntu project of redeveloping slums and shanty towns around the world with a particular pilot project that we're working on in South Africa. So really excited, really tired. We've been working really hard on this. Check it out.
What a beautiful stage. The world stage.
Can I ask you just about your educational journey?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you had studied here in Durban, South Africa, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you went over to the United States.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit around how that took place? How did that actually happen?
Good question. I did primary school in Phoenix, Hopeville Primary School, and then I went to high school in Zimbabwe. And I know that's very strange that I would go to high school in Zimbabwe. It was because my church actually has a boarding school there.
Yeah.
So through that connection, I was able to go and study there, high school. And whilst in high school, again, the dream was always to go and study in America and learn from an already developed country and bring that here.
So you've mentioned heading over to the States. Would you mind just telling us how you came across that opportunity to now study in Michigan, you mentioned?
Yeah, Michigan. So yeah, I was studying at Durban University of Technology. I just gotten a full scholarship through PRASA and Metro Rail. One of my uncles had told me about the opportunity to apply for a bursary.
Yep.
And I remember, studying here, I was doing well. And I was like, man, this is not the goal. I remember just like praying and asking God. I was like, man, like, I want to go study in the US so that I can learn from an already developed country.
So you've mentioned your faith a couple of times. If
Yeah.
you wouldn't mind me asking you, how much of your journey do you think faith has played a role in?
100%. Yeah. Just like, I think faith has played a pivotal role in my journey. I've always been curious and studying, scriptures. But to me, it's like, I think I started going to church in grade 5,
Yep.
where my family started going to church, outside of Easter and Christmas. and I remember I was like, man, this is like, I could be playing soccer, but I can't play soccer now because it's the Sabbath. So I was like not happy,
Yeah.
I was like developing in my soccer career, and my friends were going to play Pirates and all
Sure.
this stuff. I was like, no. And I remember, telling myself, and I think my mom, and I was like, look, I'd been taught the verse, I think that I can do all things through Christ who give me strength, right? I was like, well, let me test this out. If God really exists and this thing works, I can do all things through Christ who give me strength. And at the time, I was like a naughty kid who was put in special class and just like crazy, like bad. And I was like, if I can do all things through Christ who give me strength, let me see if I can start doing well in school and this. So I held on to that like perspective, trying to test it. Like I want to go study in America, I want to do architecture, I want to change the world, I want to do all the things. And I just like held, within a year, I was out of special class. I was now representing the school in science exhibitions. And every time I stood up to like present the project, the teachers would pause me and spend 15 minutes talking about like the transformation. They're like, this is crazy. You'll all need to be like him. Look at the transformation, etc. And till today, I've sort of been putting that statement to test. It's like, well, if I can do all things, then so I think that's really been an anchor in my story.
It's amazing. I love that approach to faith.
Yeah.
I think when you think of faith, you have to be aware that risk is going to be involved in a life of faith.
100%.
And just that attitude of putting it to the test, if you can say it like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to do a mental exercise with me. We've done this before, but the difference with this is I really want you to think about what I am saying to you. If it's going to help, close your eyes so that you can give it some focus. So here's the words that I'd love to say to you. Summer holidays. What comes to mind when you think of summer holidays? Christmas carols. Do you sing Christmas carols? Have you got a favorite Christmas carol? If you're living in the United Kingdom, think about the Christmas lights down Regent Street. What about Christmas pudding? I'm going to stop on that last one. Christmas pudding. Keep thinking about it. What's taking place is that we are forming images around the subject that I'm mentioning. Do you even know what Christmas pudding is? Christmas pudding in our household was that pudding that came out after the meal that for some strange reason, I don't know where this tradition came from, but there was always coins put inside the Christmas pudding, And so it wasn't so much about eating the Christmas pudding as it was about trying to find these coins. And then there was brandy poured over the Christmas pudding, and it was set alight, like it was this unbelievable event that took place that I look forward to every single year. But Christmas pudding, because we are visual thinkers, what we've done is that we've formed an image in our mind around Christmas pudding, and that image, although we are all thinking about the same subject, is now being seen in so many various ways by anybody who might be listening to this talk. We are thinking on the same subject, but we are all seeing it differently. That seeing a subject differently is known as our perception. And our perception is powerful. Our perception is our reality. And the perception that we carry towards certain subjects plays a significant role in how we interact or behave towards that subject. See, it's not so much about what we see, it's about how we see it. We have a way of seeing. Did you know that God has a way of seeing? We're currently in our Advent journey. Advent literally meaning the arrival. And it's this anticipation of the great arrival, of the greatest gift that was ever given to mankind for all time. And that is the gift of Jesus. Emmanuel, God is with us. In last week's talk, we touched on joy. And joy is one of those beautiful fruits that comes by living in faith and with the Spirit of God dwelling in us. That as we choose to bring our focus and remembrance and conscious thought on Jesus and the salvation and life that He brings into our life, the more we abide in that, the more a deep sense of joy arises out of our spirit. I want to read to you a quote from Anne Voskamp, a phenomenal author. She says this: "Joy is a function of gratitude. Gratitude is a function of perspective. Perspective is perception. Perspective and how we perceive things is the way that we see things. And so joy is drawn from gratitude, and gratitude largely comes by how we see things. You have a way of seeing something. I have a way of seeing something. God has a way of seeing something. And when we talk about discipleship, that growing in loving union with Jesus, an aim of discipleship is that our way of seeing would start to align with the way of God and how He sees. That our perceptions or our perceiving would align to the way that God sees. When I think of how we see things, so much of how we see things is shaped by certain filters. We have filters of our upbringing, we have filters of our experiences, we have filters of our education. But we can also have a filter of Jesus. The advent of Christ, the coming King, the great arrival, this gift of salvation. It allows us to see through Christ onto what might be around us, and it shapes how we see it. C.S. Lewis, the phenomenal author, wrote the Narnia series. He says it like this: "I believe in Christianity as I believe in the sun, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else." How do you see things? It's not what you are seeing right now. It's how you are seeing it. Anne Voskamp makes this incredible comment around society. And speaking largely of humanity, she says that we are so fixated on facades. In other words, the surface, what's going on around us. Is that what God sees? Is that where His attention and focus is on? Here's the reality. We cannot be naive to the fact that there is a story being told by society that affects the way that we see things. You may have heard it being spoken of in political circles or in the media circles, and it's this word narrative. Narrative is the collective story of society being told, and it is largely being told by a minority, which ultimately affects the majority. There is a story, and we have to choose which story are we listening to. And by that story, it will shape how we see things. You know, propaganda is a real thing. Edward Bernays, he was an Austrian-born American. He was the nephew of psychologist Sigmund Freud. And he was often referred to as the father of public relations. He was one of the first to use psychological processes to influence society at large. He was quoted as saying this: "If we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, is it not possible to control and regiment the messages according to our will without their knowing of it?" There's a story being told. This Christmas time, there is a story being told. There might be a story of accumulation of material desires. There may be a story that is being told to us that could actually be derailing us from living from that place of joy that we spoke of last week. But the other story is the story of the one true gift, the arrival of Jesus. You see, we see life by plain sight. We look at the objects that are around us. But God, He looks at what is unseen. We are fixated by facades. God looks to the heart. I want to read to you from 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel verse 16. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul?" Saul was the king of Israel at the time. "Since I have rejected him as king of Israel. Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse in Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be a king." Now we go into verse 3. "Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint the one I have chosen." Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived in Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. It wasn't always a good thing when a prophet of God turned up in your town, okay? They asked, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab, and he thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands before me." But God had other ideas. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance, do not consider his facade, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. There is a way of seeing. There is God's way, and then there is society's way. God's way always looks to something that is deeper. Again, Anne Voskamp, speaking of the Advent, she says it like this: Advent is the baptism of our eyes, like a clear washing of our eyes. This Christmas, may we see Christ. This Christmas, may we see Jesus, and by Jesus, may we see everything else. Life gains substance by focusing on what is unseen. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 7, for we live by faith and not by sight. Sight in these current times might tell us to despair, but faith tells us to have hope. There is a coming King. Jesus, he wasn't born into a world of the seen, not according to what would have been celebrated in the times in which he lived, nor in the times in which we live right now. He didn't come in a grand event. He didn't come in the form of a superior leader or a mighty warrior. He didn't arrive with his entourage and the paparazzi following him. He didn't arrive with a title or any esteem from a societal perspective. He arrived in a barn. He came in a way that might not have been by the way that you and I see, but God sees differently. People are not just facades. People are hearts, and God looks to the heart. My asking of us in this period as we lead towards that great day of celebration is that we don't become fixated by facades. We don't look just to the material. We don't look to just the surface. We don't look at how the world is telling us to look. But we look to Jesus, and we look by Jesus, and we look to the heart. And that's the beautiful thing for you and I right now, is that when God sees us, He sees heart. He looks to the depth of who we are. And this great gift, this arrival of Jesus, Emmanuel, He is the one that has the ability to transform the human heart. And His desire over this period is that you would come closer and that He would be close with you. And that every single one of us might see differently. It's not about what you see. It's about how you see it. Our light, our salvation, it's arriving. It has arrived 2,000 odd years ago. And this is the celebration of that arrival. My hope and prayer is that you would be blessed in the days leading up to this festive season, that there would be laughter and joy, and there would be new ways of seeing things. So thanks again for connecting with us. Our hope always is that those talks are helpful and inspiring to you, and no doubt you would have enjoyed the conversation with Wandile. If you would like to find out anything about who we are as a church, please visit our website and the details will come up on the screen. And you can email me as well. The email will come straight through to me. We would love to meet you. We'd love to have a chat, and we would love to help you get connected in our community. Be blessed, have an awesome week, and we'll see you soon.